Hello, I'm Wally Haas. I'm your host for Rockford on the Record. And today we do have a record. We have three guests instead of just one. We have Belvidere Mayor Clint Morris. We have Michael Dunn Jr., Executive Director of the Region 1 Planning Council. And of course, my frequent guest, Rockford Mayor Tom McNamara. And we're here today because a great thing happened in Belvidere last week, a celebration of a deal between the auto workers and Stellantis, and it was a great deal for Belvidere. Mayor Morris, tell us a little bit about what happened last week and your perspective on things.
Well, I think last week the president coming to Belvidere was a culmination of a lot of hard work that a lot of individuals, not only in the state, local, but federal level as well, put a lot of effort in, and to make sure that Belvidere continued to manufacture automobiles as we have since 1965. So his visit was truly a celebration.
So tell me a little bit about how important the Stellantis plant is to Belvidere.
Well, it's everything, and for a number of reasons why. One is obviously it was always historically our largest employer. And two, if we are able to maintain Stellantis, it almost acts as a contagion. You have other opportunity that certainly looks at Belvidere and realizes that we have everything that we've always had. But we, by being able to maintain them and retain them in Belvidere, we still have the location, geographic location we've always had. We still have affordable water. We have reliable power. We have in Belvidere, we have a great education system. And I think our parks and recs also, but public safety as well. So Belvidere's always been on the map. One of our trademarks, though, has always been Chrysler, Fiat, Benz, and now Stellantis. And certainly this was huge to be able to have them stay.
Now, these kind of deals, they don't happen overnight. They take a lot of work. And Mr. Dunn, you've been involved with a lot of that. Take us through the timetable for how this happened.
Sure. The mayor and I were just talking about it, right? In that we all have watched Senator Durbin and other members of Congress remind our region that you all have to sing with one voice, right? I need to hear what your priorities are, where we're not going to get in a room and contradict each other. And I think that in today's world, right, both for private investment and public investment from the federal government, regions are competing with regions. Regions are putting their best story in front of a member of Congress, especially in today's gerrymandered districts. A member of Congress might have, 6 metro areas that they're trying to bring resources back to. And so I think the Planning Council fills that role of saying, hey, regionally across jurisdictional lines, these are our top economic priorities, infrastructure priorities, community priorities, and we try to connect those priorities to federal policy. And so under Mayor McNamara's leadership and Mayor Morris's leadership, we created a council of government roughly 2 years ago to get all the elected leaders from the region around a table. The first rallying cry was the nuclear power plant to show that it wasn't just a Byron issue, right? And I think, and I'd let the mayor speak to it, but shortly thereafter we realized that what Mayor Morris was facing in Belvidere and what Chairman Riley and Chairman Johnson were facing in Boone County was an economic Chernobyl. If the automotive cluster, not just Stellantis, but all the suppliers, right? That cluster just disappears. And so that's when we started hosting Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, Congressman LaHood, and others with the COG and working with them.
Okay, Mayor McNamara, now this, the plant is in Belvidere, but it has a huge impact on Rockford. And so talk to us a little bit about how important it is for Rockford, and plus take us a little bit through this Senator Durbin visit and this singing with one voice, although I don't want you to sing.
No one wants me to sing, Wally. So when you think about it, obviously it's in Belvidere, but it is one of those economic engines that the tentacles reach out throughout the entire region. I mean, we have probably just under half the employees that work out there live in Rockford. Then you look at if it's the restaurants, the retail, the other suppliers to Stellantis, they're in Belvidere and they're in Rockford, and we all need to be working together. And as Michael mentioned, there's been far too many times in our history that with good intentions, we're not working together truly as a region and as one voice. And this really was that opportunity. We started the Council of Government in mid-2021. And one of the first things we did was write a letter to the governor. Then we quickly followed that letter to the governor to our local legislators, and then we reached out to our federal partners, both congressmen as well as our senators, and we were really fortunate. I mean, I think it's because of the collective voice. Governor Pritzker himself attended one of our COG meetings because we said this needs to be on everyone's front burner. This isn't just critical to Belvidere. It's not just critical to our region. It's critical to the state. We had Governor Pritzker in on one of those meetings. We also were fortunate that we had Senator Durbin. We had congressmen and women. We had Deputy Governor Andy Menard. We had our local state legislators, and all of them were also doing other pieces. And I mean, I'm sure Michael or Mayor Morris could touch on it, but I mean, everything from the REV Act that was approved that provided yet another stepping stone in this, to the Inflation Reduction Act also played a role at the federal level. So you had state and federal, and then you had local folks coming together saying this is a top priority for our entire region. It proved to be successful.
Yeah, I would just say that a lot of shout outs, right? And we have a 20-minute video with all the shout outs, but the governor's office led by Deputy Governor Menard, Deputy Governor Menard came in person with the head of DCO and said, okay, here's the game plan. We're looking at what Stellantis is putting other states through. We're seeing how these deals have gotten done by the big three and other Midwestern states. And you all, we have everybody assembled around the table as a COG. You all better be prepared. This is going to hurt. This isn't going to be easy. And to Mayor Morris's credit, he led that local group in saying, all right, we have to do what Kentucky and Ohio and Michigan are doing on the local level, right? The state, and thanks to Representative Vella, Senator Stottleman, Governor Pritzker led this thing every step of the way on his own. Governor Pritzker led on this, but they handled the state incentives. We were responsible, again, that one voice, to make sure all the taxing districts were ready to compete on the local incentive level. Shout outs to Congressman Foster, Congressman Sorensen. They're coming in with a lot of asks on the federal public infrastructure that is needed to support whatever Stellantis does there, right? So you have that federal level working, you have the state level working, and then you have all the taxing districts in Boone County working with the idea of Mayor McNamara, again, as chair of the COG, knowing that, businesses, neighborhoods, homes are all going to be, schools are all going to be impacted if we have 4,000 new families working here by 2027.
A lot of stuff going on there. Let's back up a little bit. Mayor Morris, just walk us through what, it's going to be more than just retooling the Belvidere existing plant. There's a lot more involved. Tell us everything that's going to be happening here in Belvidere in the next few years.
Well, there's some adjacent property that's located to the west. I think it's roughly 300 acres, 257, 300 acres, right around there. That will be a battery manufacturing opportunity that will bring jobs, of course. The main thing is that they are going to be continuing to operate at the plant, jobs, and it is about jobs. Without jobs, I think we've seen some of the other areas, not only in the state but in the country, when you lose jobs, you create blight and you make it harder for residents to have services and what have you. So that, and there'll be also it's my understanding there will be $100 million invested towards a distribution facility there, which again, more jobs. I do want to comment though, I'm relatively new here in office. I've been in office for 2.5 years, and certainly it was a little bit daunting. We didn't, this administration, I didn't want to, thank you. And it was a welcome. It was certainly enlightening. But we didn't want to be, I didn't want to be known as the administration, or we didn't want to be the administration that actually lost 58 years of auto manufacturing in Belvidere. But I also realized in order to do that, it needed to be an effort. And I was able to rely on, as Michael said, Mayor McNamara is the chair of the Council of Governance, and he was certainly so helpful, so instrumental in arranging for not only me, but for our colleagues, our other mayors with the COG and Michael as well, but to make sure that we had to be able to compete. And that was a big part of it. In order to be able to compete, you have to be heard. So we had a voice, and the voice was not selfish. It was very unselfish. We recognized that what's good for Belvidere is good for the region, is good for the state, and ultimately we made that sale, it's good for the country. You know, if you lose jobs, my constituents are also all of our state representatives that were helped out. Michael had mentioned Representative Vella, Senator Stottleman. But, you know, with that being said, we were able to definitely pull together and with a common goal, and it was very unselfish. So, you know, we started with the state. The mayor had also obviously was instrumental. Mayor McNamara was instrumental in reaching the governor's office, and then from there, it was on a federal level. All of my constituents are their constituents as well, and as well as Mayor McNamara and every other COG member. So.
Well,
Go.
can I
Hey,
actually?
you know how we script these things.
Yeah,
You know, you can't just jump in.
Sorry, but I think Mayor Morris just mentioned something, and he's done an amazing job in the short period that he's there to build relationships and ultimately with this phenomenal new development. But he mentioned something that kind of glossed over it, and I want to put Michael Dunn on the spot because you look at a lot of neat things that have been taking place, and you find often either at the core of it or on the peripheral of it, you see Region 1. And I think one thing that you mentioned, Mayor, was this additional acreage, 250 to 300 acres. And truthfully, City of Rockford did a campaign for home rule. We lost it. Thank you very little to everyone. But
I supported that.
Thank you. You were the one.
Yeah.
But we lost that. And one of the things we wanted to do is get a land bank. We could not get a land bank in Rockford or get one really going without home rule status. Belvidere had home rule status. So Belvidere, Boone, Winnebago, and Rockford became, I believe, the charter members. But Michael, could you talk a little bit about the land bank and how that played a role? Because I think that's lost on folks.
Sure. I guess to start with, Region 1 is owned and governed by 6 government leaders. It's expanded with a much larger board that involves a lot of appointed and elected officials. But at the core of it, it's owned by Rockford, Loves Park, McChesney Park, Belvidere, Winnebago County, and Boone County. McHenry County, Stevenson County, they all play a role, but those were kind of, to the mayor's point, the charter owners of what R1 is. And, you know, again, shout outs for Stellantis. Part of R1's board membership is Rock Valley College, is the Workforce Investment Board. They both played critical roles in this discussion we were having with the governor's office. Gina Corona, Dr. Corona Marvin, Dr. Spearman, Howard, they both put a lot of intelligence on the table of what their local capacity was, and they both deserve probably more credit than they've been given up until this point. And they're members of R1, right? And so what R1 is it isn't really a separate form of government. It is a subsidiary of those 6 governments, right? It's an extension. And it is representing about 45 staff members that all have specialty degrees and specialty subject matter expertise. So when Mayor Morris comes and says, I need help making a pitch on this local incentive, we can run an economic impact model with our staff in-house and show what the break-even point is for that incentive back to local government in sales tax or property tax dollars, right? Likewise, to the mayor's prompting of me on the land thing, those same people are working alongside our land bank staff. And so, Wally, what happened was, I think the COG board members, our staff, we did such a good job of answering Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth's kind of challenge, right? And it worked so well for the DCO and the governor's office that they came back and said, hey, in order for Stellantis to come here, and they will not come here without this, can you secure this additional acreage next to their facility, to the west of their facility? We need to move extremely fast. And so we kind of stood up and answered that challenge and did so to then deliver that back to the state and let the state take it from there. The mayor's point isn't lost on me, is creating the land bank was very difficult. Creating the COG was very difficult. Every step of the way that R1
Seems easy now.
It does. Every step of the way as R1 has tried to be nothing special. Basically what every other area of 200,000 people in the country already had since the 1960s. Seattle, Miami, they all have these things. In this community, because we never really did, it was a really hard thing to get stood up. And the land bank was pushed back. There was fears on what home rule powers might it have. Will it have eminent domain? We couldn't do it unless it was a regional land bank. And now outside of Cook County, it's the most successful land bank in the state of Illinois, even without the Stellantis project. And so it really is a credit to Mayor Chamberlain and now Mayor Morris in that they were early adopters of the land bank. They came in and allowed the land bank to have that home rule power. So does the city of Freeport, by the way. The city of Freeport's in, and so we have 2 home rule members. That power is very, very limited, very extremely limited. But without that, we wouldn't have had a land bank, and we would not have been able to secure this site for Stellantis.
All right. So, I've been in the news business for more than 40 years, and, I've written a lot about, Council of Governments and the need for speaking with one voice. And from my perspective, none of this could have happened without the COG and without the Region 1 Planning Council in its current form. So congrats to all of you on that. So I was talking to Dave Vella at the event last week, and he said this is where the work begins. So there's going to be a lot of things that have to happen between now and when people start working again in the plant. So who can run me through some of the things that need to be done? What are next steps?
Well, I think, what is important is that whenever this challenge that the city of Belvidere faced and the region faced, whenever this was, there had to be a carrot. There had to be something that we had to be able to compete. Make no mistake about it, when you look at some of the auto manufacturing plants and where they've went or where they've left, it has been because of competitive. You've had to be able to compete competitively, economically. And with that being said, we had, I recall whenever Ontario they had attracted a EV plant along with a battery plant in Ontario. And of course, we were talking about diminished workforce, and we had lost a shift at our Belvidere plant. And so it became obvious that this was going to take a very competitive effort. And with that, economics plays a part of it. On one hand, it's a scale. If you want to compete, then you have to be able to compete economically. So there will be, the city of Belvidere and our taxing bodies, we will have a commitment that we have made to keep Stellantis in Belvidere. And that was done, I might add, because we look at not only what it does to keep them there with the added attraction of potentially 4,000 to 5,000 jobs, but also some of the other suppliers that we had lost. There will be other opportunities as well. And as I had said, we're located perfect off the growth corridor, and where we're located and what we have working for us in Belvidere, going for us in Belvidere, makes it attractive to future development. And as a mayor of Belvidere, I will tell you this, I want jobs. Jobs are they're vital. If you don't have jobs, as I said before, you have a problem. We have a big problem. And so I do want to also mention, because I think Mayor McNamara has been a little bit, maybe a little bit shy about his part in all of this, but believe me, I did rely on him tremendously, as a regional partner and as a colleague of the COG and also as a fellow mayor. And so with that being said, there was never anything but help that I received, and I'd asked for some things and information and what have you, but he was a tremendous partner, and he recognizes what's good for Belvidere is good for the region, good for Northern Illinois, and also Michael as well. I've had Michael in Belvidere. We've had tremendous success with General Mills. We had a $1.2 billion investment with Walmart, and we currently, hopefully, will have another maybe a 1.2 million square foot investment with a distribution center in Belvidere. But I've had Michael in Belvidere, and I've always said that somebody has to have their arms around and has to have a great understanding of economic development in the big picture, a big picture, 30,000 foot view. And I think I couldn't ask for anything more, because Michael always has had wonderful advice with his eye on economic development and the future, what the future holds for Belvidere, long after I'm gone, long after Mayor McNamara is gone, and Michael probably as well. Michael's a lot younger than I am. But long after that, we'll be left with either what we accomplished or what we failed to do. And I think that's the big thing to me, is the help that we were able to put together, and what we were able to accomplish. So we are going to have some hurdles that we are going to, there's no doubt, with our we'd put together an economic package that we had started with originally with the state, with the governor's office, to, we knew we had to compete. So we did, and here we are, and that's probably going to be our next step.
Well, you mentioned jobs, 4,000 or 5,000 new jobs coming into the community. Okay, so that brings up issues of workforce development and recruiting. And which one of you would like to speak to that?
Well, you took my answer.
Oh, okay, there we go.
You're that smart, Wally. First, I'll triple down on Mayor Morris's comments about Mayor McNamara. When I started this job at the beginning of 2015, and no offense to the board that hired me, because they hired me, right? I will tell you that nobody on that board would have said, we want Rockford to chair this. We want Rockford to lead. When the COG was formed, everybody around the table, urban Republican, suburban Republican, rural Democrat, everybody across party lines and jurisdictions said Mayor McNamara is the best person to lead this. So much so that they then reelected you as chair a second time. And so that wasn't happening in 2015. And it wasn't just against Rockford. It was, you could just feel it in the room, a difference between rural concerns and rural agendas versus an urban environment agenda, right? And Democrat versus Republican, and county chair versus mayor, that's a thing, by the way. And so, that Mayor McNamara's leadership with Mayor Morris has kind of eliminated a lot of that, made all of the staff at R1's job easier because we can implement our ideas. So I would triple down on that compliment. The second item to your question on, there's a lot more sausage making to be done. I'm not about to suggest what the state has to go through with Stellantis. There is a lot that the state has to go through with Stellantis still. But even prior to Stellantis, when we look at job growth at the airport, when we look at even the job growth that maybe a casino will create, right, in those, service class jobs, we do not have the housing for the 2025 or 2030 or 2035 economy. In the worst recession pressures, worst inflation, worst interest rates, hardest mortgages to get, the demand for housing is going to outstrip our capacity, and right now we're at about a 97% occupancy. So if we're going to bring in all these new jobs in Belvidere, no offense to Belvidere, I don't think they're all going to land in Belvidere. And so it's a regional issue on where's everyone going to live? How's everybody going to have that quality of life that Rockford and the Rockford region markets itself on, right?
So is that something your agency is working on? Who's working on that?
We are, because as a land bank, so we are under federal funding to do a regional housing study, which we're gearing up to do. We are a 5-county land bank, and we are focused on workforce housing projects. So focused on, how are we using workforce housing as a way to attract and retain talent to the area.
Okay. Now I hear that McHenry County has a pretty robust housing program. I'm not very familiar with the particulars. One of your colleagues had mentioned it to me the other day. What can you tell me about that?
I can't tell you much. Isaac would probably be much better at telling you that. They have that reputation. They are in our land bank. So McHenry County is part of the Rockford Land Bank. They do a really good job as far as targeting industry for that workforce housing development. They have the good fortune of having developers in their county who are building multifamily structures for workforce housing. I can tell you that much, Wally. I would defer to Isaac on the details that he might have referenced to.
One thing I just want to add, I should have done this long ago, but I think at the core of those discussions, we're talking about Stellantis, we're talking about jobs, but when you hear, if it's Mayor Morris or any of the other officials on there, none of us were talking about jobs. It was all people, because I think that gets a little bit lost when you just continue to read 4,000 jobs. I mean, I was reading with great interest. A woman said, you know, what does this mean? They were seemingly asked, what does this mean to you? And she said, I get my husband back. I get my family back. I think, you know, all of this, I think all of us played a role. I think state reps, federal government, governor, everyone played a role. But at the beginning and certainly at the end, the UAW members themselves and their family members who have given so much are probably the ultimate role in getting it all done, and why we're all elected, and why, you know, Michael serves in the position he's in. It's not, you know, for transportation, housing, and jobs. It's for people to utilize those services.
Right. Now, it was mentioned that there's still a lot of work to be done on the state level. You've got a great relationship with Governor Pritzker. Have you got any insight into what his administration is going to do to make sure that everything goes smoothly from here on?
So in true Governor Pritzker fashion, and I would say, you know, Deputy Governor Manar, they are going to be doing absolutely every single thing. I mean, he doesn't come in and celebrate something unless he knows he can deliver on it. And so they have their work cut out for us, or for them. I know, as Mike was touching on with housing, we have significant concerns about housing in Rockford. We need more affordable, we need more market, and we need more luxury. And so we are trying to do everything we can, from new developments to rebating people's property taxes to build new developments or build new units. So insight, no, I'm not going to get into all their personal work that they'll be doing, but I will tell you, I mean, we really are. I don't care what party someone's from. When it comes to work like this, you want Governor Pritzker on your side, and he has been actively engaged since day one, as Michael mentioned, I think probably better than I could, really leading this effort. And I have full faith that him and the people he surrounds himself, as well as our state legislators, are going to do everything they need to do to make sure that this moves as we all planned.
Yeah, from my perspective, Governor Pritzker has paid a lot more attention to Rockford than previous administrations have.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly say so. I think we've worked really hard to ensure that we have good relationships between my administration and his administration, but also just really building up relationships with our state representatives and senators and the staffs of all the state reps, as well as the governor's office. And Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton has also been tremendous to Rockford.
And again, shout out DCO.
Yeah.
Director Richards,
For sure.
Lisa Clement-Stott.
Lisa Clement.
DCO has been working it hard.
I mean, there have been so many different entities involved in getting this done. I mean, how does everybody communicate? I mean, how do you make sure that you're all on the same page, singing with the same voice, as was mentioned before? I mean, you've talked about DCO, you've talked about the different communities, you've talked about the COG, talked about the state. I mean, how do you get everybody to work together?
I mentioned it because you alluded to him. Isaac Guerrero deserves a lot of credit. Isaac Guerrero was my day-to-day person, and as a COG representative, speaking to Dr. Spearman, speaking to Dr. Corona Marvin, Isaac was kind of the facilitator.
How do you do it? I mean, countless phone calls, Zooms,
Lots of them.
lots of Zoom meetings. We all learned how to hit mute. But just a lot of meetings, a lot of interactions, and just a lot of even phone calls, talking to people on the weekends, late at night, and just
Sunday
figuring it
mornings.
all out. Yes.
So, you know, deals like this, they tend to have a ripple effect. There are probably going to be some other great stuff coming down the line. Any predictions, hopes?
Well, you know, from you know, where we sit in Belvidere and our part in the region, Belvidere has always been, I thought, had development potential that, for one reason or another, that went untapped. And part of it is, and I will say this, when I ran for office here, you know, my job was to represent the residents of Belvidere. And certainly, I didn't think that I could represent, you know, the citizens of Belvidere, the taxpayers of Belvidere, without help. I mean, historically, I think what's happened is, politically, I think you have polarization. You know, you have, you know, I'm here to save you from them, so therefore, you know, you support me. I don't have any of that. I do believe that, you know, my job is what they've hired me to do, what the voters have hired me to do in Belvidere, is to work to benefit the community. And who I work with is, you know, I want to make it to their advantage. I want to make sure that I don't have a, you know, gridlock, and I don't have this polarity that it doesn't serve any purpose, except maybe it serves political purpose, perhaps. But when I ran, I do believe that I was the first non-Republican mayor in the history of Belvidere. I ran as an independent. And I did that for a reason, because I felt that, you know, I wanted to work with individuals like Mayor McNamara and even Michael. You know, I felt that I should go in there and try and put my best foot forward, and that was my job. They didn't elect me to, you know, they didn't elect me to make enemies or to, you know, to polarize any opportunity that I might be able to get. They elected me to provide results. And believe me, we have been able to do it, but with very, very good help. And I think we touched upon that today on a local, state, and federal level. And so I couldn't be more thrilled. I think that's how you get opportunity. And you had asked about what's in store, what's a ripple effect. And I think the relationship that you built and what you continue to do, I think if it's successful, that's a good thing for our community, and it's a good thing for everybody else too, especially those in the COG. And Michael's always had his finger on the pulse of economic development. I've relied on him very, very much, and R1, because when I've had him in Belvidere, I've often said that I don't think anybody has a better picture of what we ought to be doing, and he helps remind me that you know, there are some things that we could do perhaps a little bit better, and I put a lot of stock, a lot of faith in that. So, you know, I really appreciate it. But to me, it's easy. It's what we ought to be doing. As I said, that's what they elected us to do, is provide results, and we have done it, especially here.
So I think the ripple effect is also, there's public infrastructure that's now going to show up and be funded. That's been on the drawing book. Like you know, your old colleague Chuck Sweeney said, too many plans on the shelf, right? There are plenty of plans on the shelf going back 20 years that we've never had the funding for. Those public infrastructure pieces are directly tied to having, not because we want them, but we have to have them to support Stellantis's growth. I think that will allow other economic development opportunities in the nearby area that without those same public improvements would never occur. And then I think that, as Mayor McNamara already shared, this is going to affect Rockford, this is going to affect Roscoe, this is going to affect Stillman Valley, right? This is going to affect everyone. And so what is our, you know, approach towards new residents, new commerce, more cars on the road, right? You look at
electric
those
cars,
downline
though,
effects.
right?
30 to 40%, right, is what the numbers are saying. But yeah, you look at those downline impacts on public infrastructure and what's stressing the system out. Even, and I wouldn't pretend to know, but how it might stress out certain school systems, right? All of that, you're going to have a population influx now.
And you have new developments. I mean, when you see someone like Stellantis not just reinvest, but double down on that investment, I mean, I know Rockford has multiple economic development projects that just even recently, as this has all started to come, are getting hotter and hotter as great prospects. I know Belvidere and Boone has the same. I know Winnebago County and Chairman Shirley is working on a number of deals. I think we are on the precipice of some really, I mean, we've had a really wonderful year in our region. I think this next year is going to be something to behold.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're going to cite $1 billion investment, right, and Stellantis is close to $5 billion with a B, right? If you're going to even cite $1 billion investment, you're going to go to somewhere where they make it easy for you, right? Where it's not painful. And what we have just shown the nation is that local, state, and federal government work together to make it easy.
So in your view, because of this deal, more good deals are going to happen.
We have a better reputation.
And we're able to compete. We're able to compete better. You know, if we have the opportunity in the region because of this because of the Stellantis success, it obviously makes our region, city of Belvidere, but also Rockford, also the region. It puts us on the map. It makes us more marketable, and it certainly exemplifies all of the advantages that we have. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Chairman Riley, Boone County Chairman Riley, as well. Chairman Riley is another newcomer. He was just elected chairman, Boone County Board Chairman here recently, and he's been wonderful to work with from my perspective. I couldn't be happier to work with him. And so to him and his entire board and to my city council, I think, you know, we've been able to pull in the right direction, and a certain amount of trust that goes with it, but I think these are the results, successful results.
So that's good. Oh, wait, you
No.
wanted to jump in there?
No, Wally, the show's yours.
I just saw a big smile on your face, and I thought something occurred to you.
5,000 jobs, $5 billion worth of work. I'll be smiling for a while.
I think everyone in Rockford, Belvidere, and the surrounding communities will be smiling for quite a while after this deal. So, final thoughts. Anyone has any final thoughts here before we wrap it up?
No, you know, I would just emphasize that this took a lot of hard work. It really did, and a lot of time. And I want to thank my colleagues here to my left. I want to thank them for all the help that they provided to me, and all the, you know, Mayor McNamara had made connections that otherwise I would not have had. And he certainly got me an audience, and Michael as well, got an audience for the community, for the city of Belvidere, and we took advantage of it as a whole. So for that, thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank
Well,
you.
congratulations to all your hard work did pay off on this project. I look forward to the results. So, hey, thank you very much for tuning into this episode of Rockford on the Record. Now, you don't have to watch this episode. You can just put in your earbuds and listen to it. You know, watching four white guys sit around in chairs is not the most exciting thing that happens, but hey, but anyway, you can listen to it. It's great conversation. There's great information here. So going forward, like our content, subscribe to our channel, and thank you very much for this episode of Rockford on the Record. I'm Wally Haas.